There's some curious media related to travel, and we put the source and the name of the headline so you can Google this stuff and read the full articles yourself. But there's just some really interesting science and studies that are coming out. And the Los Angeles Times said travel is the best medicine, study finds in the LA Times. And here's what they determined: travel is the best medicine. That was the gist of it. They say women who vacationed every 6 years or less, which means these are women who probably either just stayed really close to local, and probably my guess on this is they didn't get to venture outside much of other than like going to the relatives or something like that. And what it says is women who vacation less than every 6 years had significantly higher risk of developing a heart attack or coronary death compared to women who vacationed at least twice a year. So you basically have a model of two different women in this study. One, very localized, and women by nature are super giving and super nurturing and super caring. And so in their sphere of influence, whether it's their kids, their husbands, their book clubs, their churches, I think what happens is they live so tight in a pressure cooker that if they don't escape, the pressure of all that kind of builds up, and they're at a significantly higher. They didn't state what the stat is, but they actually higher risk of heart attack and coronary death versus those women who probably, I'm going to guess, gave and nurtured just as hard and just as thorough as the women who lived and stayed local versus women that got out twice a year and vacationed. Those people seem to just live longer, which of course allowed them to nurture longer and such. Men, on the flip side, who did not take an annual vacation, this was a 7-day vacation, by the way, were shown to have 20% higher risk of death, period, just all things related, and about a 30% greater risk of death from heart disease. And again, I think it's the same thing. The men tend to be very focused on providing for their families and living, very day to day to provide for the family. And again, I think if they don't get out and escape that, just it's heavy psychologically and it's heavy physically. So here's another thing that the LA Times found, that after only 24 to 48 hours of vacationing, so while they're on the vacation, either 1 day in or 2 days in, 89% of respondents saw a significant drop in stress. And again, I think this is because they break the shell of the everyday life and they live longer and feel better. That's the LA Times. Here's Forbes. Forbes says, take a vacation. It's good for productivity and the economy, according to a new study by Forbes. Forbes is always a little more economically focused than the LA Times would be. So, in a study by Oxford Economics Group, most managers recognize, so they interviewed managers, that higher productivity from workers who vacation. And again, I think this has to do with if you don't vacation, you're kind of cocooned. But when you get out, you kind of re-energize, you rejuvenate, and then you come back to your workforce and you have higher productivity. Also, stronger workplace morale when workers vacation. And again, I think this has to do with the claustrophobia of being around the same people in work environments over and over and over, and kind of having the whole conversation revolve around getting stuff done, which is fine. But again, I think when these workers distribute themselves out on vacations and all come back together again, they appreciate each other maybe a little bit more and also return with a little more creativity. Finally, from Forbes, men who did not take an annual vacation were shown to have 20% higher risk of death and 30% greater risk of death from heart disease, citing the same thing that the LA Times did. Another post, the Washington Post, says that the latest research, and the reason I'm sharing this is because it's interesting, the science of vacationing. And what we've done in our family is we've actually ritualized it. We plan them out. We plan out 3 to 5 vacations minimum per year that are a week long, or just shy of it, anywhere from 5 to 7 days. And it keeps our family memories kind of stacking up. It also brings the stress of how kind of focused we work when we do work, drops that because we're in a new environment, and it's just kind of rejuvenating stuff. But this is interesting. It says in Sweden, when people collectively vacation during the summertime, there's a steep decline in antidepressant prescriptions. So this means in Sweden, much of the workforce kind of, instead of driving so hard, they kind of take kind of a collective nationwide chill And during that time, antidepressants, which kind of help people battle through the somewhat depressing situation of their life, they have a steep decline, and people request them and seek them far less. So it appears to be that they're happier when they're taking some time off. The author proposes that vacations make people happier, more rested, and less likely to slip into depression. And what they say is that depression costs the United States of America an estimated $23 billion per year in lost productivity. Similar to what Forbes was saying, is that a workforce that does not escape tends to kind of die in the cage there, in a sense, to overstate it a little bit. In 1975, this is just a curious thing that the Post mentions, the average U.S. vacation was 7 days. In 2010, the average vacation was 3.8 days. Now that's, again, remember, in the previous citation, we saw that after 24 to 48 hours, 89% of people saw a sharp decrease in stress. That's if they're barely getting de-stressed, and then they're heading right back to their situation. So 7 days is somewhat, it's assumed, it's not stated, but it's assumed that when you get to that, let's say it's the 48-hour mark, and the 89% stress stays with you a few more days. And in that is where probably all the rejuvenation and all that jazz happens. Now, also, of curious notes, 80% of families who visited Yosemite National Park stayed overnight in 1975. Today, the average visit is less than 5 hours. And again, this is hurry, hurry Americana at its finest. Now, the Huffington Post, they are a little more chippy and quick, and a little more sensationalist media outlet. But they say that couples vacation survey reveals couples who travel together have a better sex life. And what else is required to know? So you can check that one out. And who doesn't want a better sex life? Now, the USA Today says this one. What are the benefits of taking a vacation? USA Today says that women who vacation less often than once every 2 years were more likely to suffer from depression again and increased stress than women who take vacation at least twice a year. So this means getting away from it all, so you can bring and kind of fill yourself up, so you can come back and serve our families and our workplaces and our communities better than ever. So here's the short story in just this little quick video. The study reveals those who vacation most experience less day-to-day stress, they have better sex, they decrease their risk of depression, which they also live longer, both men and women, and they're more productive in their careers, which correlates, of course, to more cash flow. My theory, just my humble theory, is becoming a member of an active club like Renaissance, where you see others constantly vacationing at up to 50 to 90% off retail, will greatly increase your likelihood of integrating great vacations into your normal lifestyle on the regular. So as you're on this site, I do really encourage you to take a look at all these experiences and potentially make a commitment to say, you know what, we're going to get on a vacation, whether we can afford it or not. We're going to get on a vacation whether we think we need it or not. We're going to plan them in advance. We're going to save for them. We're going to plan for them. We're going to make them happen. And then I think what we're going to see is from all these media outlets, USA Today, we're going to have a little less stress. I could go over these again. We're going to have better sex. We're going to, on this one collectively, we're going to have a decrease in depression, it appears, and we're going to make more money. Also, Forbes, and again, I'm kind of like thick paintbrush over this, we're going to be more productive, and we're going to have stronger morale with the teammates that we work with and the people in our lives. And then men are going to have a less likelihood of just death, period. And Los Angeles Times says that, it's particularly with women, I think they just drain themselves too hard if they don't vacation, which is why, a side note, this is a different study I'm not citing, but travel decisions, 80% of them are made by the woman in a household. And I think they intuitively, out as a self-protection, know that, hey, we're going to get the family on vacation no matter what. And just some other fun stuff. So all that said, enjoy the rest of this website, take a good look at everything, and I'll see you inside Renaissance.